Well, that was fun, even though it took about 10 years off my life or so. Let's talk some Chiefs, guys. Welcome to Monday Morning with Chief in the North, except it's not Monday morning, it's Tuesday morning. Or maybe for you, it's Tuesday afternoon, or maybe it's, I don't know, Thursday evening. That would be weird, but whatever. I'm Seth Kaiser, the Chief in the North. This is RGR Football. And the Chiefs just had themselves. I'm tired. I'm genuinely tired. And it's not just because I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I didn't because, it was a night game and all that kind of fun stuff, but also because that game was exhausting to watch. Chiefs beat the Raiders by a point, come back from down 17. There's so much to talk about that I struggled actually to figure out how to condense all of it into a 10-minute video for you guys today, because that's what we do here every Monday or Tuesday. We take a look at what I think are the biggest storylines from the game that I think should at least dominate the news cycle in terms of what's interesting in terms of storylines coming from the game. I would just one thing I did want to say right out of the gate. Normally, I don't start off talking about injuries, but Tershawn Wharton tore his ACL. That is a bummer, not just for the Chiefs, but for him. He was having a solid year. He's also in a situation where he's in the last year as an undrafted free agent, and so he's probably going to end up on a 1-year deal now. It's unfortunate for him. It looked like he was getting himself a nice little pay raise. I'm sure he'll get himself a little bit of one still, but it's unfortunate for him. Hopefully he bounces back strong. And he's such a great athlete. In terms of for the Chiefs, Colin Saunders came in and played his best game as a pro, and he's been getting some run. He's been rotating in a fair amount, but now his role is going to just increase, and we'll see how that goes moving forward. But he played an excellent game against the Raiders. He made some genuinely game-changing plays. That's a big deal, both against the pass and the run. He showed up as strong at the point of attack. He had a little bit of pressure here and there. That's a big deal. In terms of storylines for the week, there's so much that you can take away from this game. There's so many things that I want to talk about, but what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to just try to break through a few things, because honestly, what I could do is I could just sit here and talk about it, the roughing the passer call for the next 10 minutes and still not have run out of things to say about it. I'm not going to do that, though. And so instead, first things first, I want to talk about Travis Kelce, who is just he just won't stop getting better. He just won't. I want to talk, I want to analyze, but I also just want to sit here and watch Travis Kelce do Travis Kelce things. He is almost indescribable. And you know how hard it is to dominate a game where you have like under 30 yards as a receiver? It's a difficult thing to do. But Travis Kelce, it's kind of funny that this happened, that he has 4 touchdowns on a day where the Baltimore beat down with SB Nation, a good site that does a great job covering the Ravens. They put out, they tweeted about Mark Andrews being the best tight end in the NFL, and maybe Kelce kind of being right there with him. And I get what they were doing. They were tweeting during a game, and I think it was kind of a throwaway line. Then they tried to defend it with some statistics that, since the 2021 season, Andrews has more yards and more touchdowns. We don't have more touchdowns anymore, but I ended up engaging with them a little bit, kind of pointing out that maybe they weren't utilizing all the stats, because if you go by on a per target basis, Kelce has more yards per target. He's got more touchdowns per target than maybe Mark Andrews is more of a volume stats guy. Great tight end. Absolutely fantastic. He's just not Travis Kelce. And that's where I just wanted to, I'm going to be writing about him in a little bit, actually. I've already started the process. So by the time you're watching this, it might be up on the Chief of the North newsletter, the Substack. You can subscribe at bit.ly/Seth Really Hates Money for $12 a year. With Kelce, it's just so important to not miss it, because it's really easy in the moment to get caught up by the daily grind of wins and losses, by how the season overall is going for a team. And then you blink and a guy's career is over. And so I'm 37. I'm old. I'm getting older every day, it feels like. I mean, I'm not as old as Ryan, but who is, honestly? Um, and I missed. I mean, I didn't miss it, but I missed it a little bit with guys like Jamal Charles and Derek Johnson and Tamba Hali and some really great all-time Chiefs. And it's so easy to get caught up in, again, the ins and outs of the schedule and how the team is doing. And that makes sense. That's why we watch it, is for team success and to see how the team is doing. But sometimes because you're so focused on that, you miss out on what individuals are doing and what makes it so incredible. Mitch Schwartz, he was such a great player, but it's easy to miss because you're caught up in what the team is doing. What we're watching with Travis Kelce, and man, I hope we see him do it for another 5 years. His game seems to be aging exceptionally well, and that's amazing to see. But don't take for granted what you're witnessing with Travis Kelce. You are watching a player every single game as his career continues to go, make his case as the greatest to ever do it at his position. And you can talk about Tony Gonzalez's longevity, and Gonzalez was so great. You can talk about Gronk's two-way dominance as a blocker and as a receiver. You can talk about, I mean, well, really, it's those two. That in terms of, like, if you're talking about body of work, it's really going to be it. I mean, you've got other guys that maybe didn't do it for quite as long or had some really high peaks, but not quite as high. But I've never seen a receiver like Kelce. He's just always open, and he helps in so many other ways as well. And so I've written about that, just the fact that he wins in so many ways, and the fact that he just understands the game and he sees it differently from other guys. It's such a cool thing. And of course, because I've waxed eloquent about Travis Kelce, we've got to speed through other topics that I think will and should dominate the news cycle this week. Arrowhead Stadium, or I'm sorry, what is it? GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium, something like that. Anyway, there you go, Chiefs. I have never seen in an NFL game. I know you had the game where Elway, couldn't snap the ball because it was too loud, and that makes the runs. I've never seen a ref crew seem intimidated into making or into either swallowing their whistles or to making a couple of calls. Now, I don't think all that was just because of crowd displeasure and crowd noise. I mean, these guys are pros. They've had fans screaming at them before. It's not like Carl Cheffers has never done a game in Philly. They've had those moments. But what I think was different here, to an extent, I think they knew they got it wrong. I mean, these guys are human. They can see the replays. I think they knew that they got it wrong. Regardless of defending the call afterward. Chris Jones clearly tried to catch himself, or did catch himself a little bit with his left hand while his right hand was holding the ball. He rolled off quickly. He clearly wasn't trying to bring down all his weight on Tom Brady. It's not, even within, it's a rule that isn't a great rule, honestly. That was a reactionary rule. A lot of NFL rules are, but this one especially is very reactionary, the full weight type thing. It was one single injury that led to it. I would say it's a bad rule that was enforced incorrectly at one of the worst possible moments. It was such a game-flipping, game-changing play where the refs directly inserted themselves into the outcome. That said, the Chiefs managed to overcome that, which is one of the worst penalties that I've seen. I mean, it'd be the equivalent of them overcoming, had they, the unsportsmanlike conduct, the taunting penalty on Chris Jones a couple weeks back against Indy. But overcome it, they did. And Arrowhead, it was crazy to watch Arrowhead turn into almost like a playoff atmosphere. It came through the TV in a way that is really, really rare. So hats off to you if you were at the game. That was quite the experience to just watch. I imagine being live, it was unbelievable. Which leads me into the next topic that I think people are going to be talking about this week is the pass rush in general, not just Chris Jones, not just the penalty. But I think that one of the topics that you're going to see there is the pass rush, just because down the stretch, it's interesting. There's a couple games in a row now where the Chiefs pass rush really hasn't gotten home a ton or even enough early in games. And then as the games wind on, you see the passer starting to get home a little more, a little more. They definitely need to find some answers earlier in games because you've got too many snaps where quarterbacks are able to survey the entire field. That's something that they're going to need to figure out. Right now, Clark ended up leaving the game. Carlos Dunlap isn't a guy who wins really quickly, consistently. He's been okay. Karlaftis has been okay, but he's been more motor, more effort, more winning within the framework of the defense. So if a stunt doesn't work, he's probably not getting home. And I think he'll get there. You see him continuing to figure it out what works on NFL tackles. It's something we've talked about here before. But really, right now, unless Chris Jones wins quickly, they're not getting a ton of rush. That's something that hopefully maybe Colin Saunders will come in and help with. Maybe they need to make a move there. But that's something to keep an eye on. But later in games, they're coming on. And it's just interesting. And I'm wondering if that's in part because of the nature of the types of rushers that they have. Guys like Dunlap and Karlaftis who are pocket crushers. As the game goes along, you got guys that are high motor, high intensity. Maybe the offensive linemen wear out just a little bit and you start getting a little bit more push there. I don't know, but it's just an interesting it's something interesting. It's something worth keeping an eye on, especially because now they've got the Bills coming to town. It's going to be a really tough game. And Josh Allen is unique in that even if you pressure him because of his ability with his feet, it's not always necessarily a win if you don't have really, really good discipline in your rush lanes. And so we'll see what kind of pressure they get on him. If they let him sit back with a lot of time or even a fair amount of time with the weapons they have and his ability, I mean, they're going to throw the ball all over the yard. But it's just interesting and something to keep an eye on for the remaining weeks and as they move forward. The difference between the pass rush in the first half and the pass rush in the second half. A final conversation note, a final big issue that I feel like isn't getting talked about quite enough today that I think should get some run. And this is what I kind of saved it for last because I think it should get some run, but I don't think it will. Actually, there's two of them. The first, pass protection with the Chiefs was god awful early in this game. It looked like the Raiders pass rush was going to dominate the game. And then that changed. And that's something that I'm going to be writing about this week. As soon as the all 22 is out, I'm going to take a look at what changed, whether it just looked like guys were winning one-on-one more. They had some chip help, but not a ton. But maybe I'm wrong and they did have a ton. I'm not sure. But it's just something worth noting that is something they really managed to turn around starting at the end of the first half and throughout the rest of the game. The pass protection by and large was significantly better than it was. It looked like this game was going to get taken over by the Raiders pass rush. And I've rarely seen a game halt in that type of area and then shift like that. Normally, when you've got a mismatch, it just remains a mismatch throughout the day. The second thing is, while Travis Kelce is rightfully going to get most of the conversation, most of the headlines, and he should, it's also worth noting that there were big plays by Valdez-Scantling, who had his best game as a Chief. He did have one really tough drop, but he made several really tough catches. He was a really reliable target for Mahomes in terms of moving the chains and making some big plays. McCole Hardman made some big plays. Juju Smith-Schuster had a couple of really important catches. Clyde had a couple of big runs and catches that were really important in terms of swinging the game. Jerick McKinnon was kind of the spark that set the whole thing off. It was interesting to see the Chiefs continuing to be playmaker by committee. And I just think that's it's at least worth noting. We still don't really know who the guy is outside of Travis Kelce, but we do know that there are multiple guys who can step in crucial moments and did. And that's going to matter for them moving forward. They need to figure out who the guy is in certain moments. And if you can have multiple guys that are capable of stepping up, that's great. And that was part of the differences. One of the differences for them to beat the Raiders, that they did have multiple guys who could step up. That's the time I have for you guys this week. Those are some of the storylines that I think matter. In the meantime, I think we all need to go take a nap or something to that effect because, man, that was a game. Chiefs fans, I will be, and I'll talk about this a little more on Thursday. I'll be at Arrowhead on Sunday. Hope to see some of you in person. It should be a fun game. Should be a good time. And as always, it's a great week to be a Chiefs fan.